Hello, everybody. I'm Bernie Goldberg, and this is the No BS Zone. I'm here with my friend, the Renaissance man of the Rockies, John Daly. How you doing, John?
I'm good, Bernie. How about you?
Good. You know, I want to start out with a question for everybody listening to us. Here's the question. Who's more popular, Vladimir Putin in Kiev, Ukraine, or Chuck Schumer in Washington, D.C.? Okay, I'll give you the answer. Vladimir Putin is more popular in Ukraine than Chuck Schumer is in Washington. He shut the government down, or it absolutely kept it shut down, because he was worried that he and the Democratic Party looked weak, rightly worried. So he kept the government shut down. Donald Trump wanted it open. That means the Democrats had to want it closed. Trump was never liked by conservatives and Republicans. Now he's despised by liberals and Democrats. He's got big problems. He looks weaker than he did before the shutdown. He's going to have a primary from either Ocasio-Cortez, unless she wants to run for president in 2028. But when it comes to his caucus voting for a Democratic leader in the Senate, he's out. He is finished. As far as the 7 Democrats and the 1 independent who voted to open up the government, they're not traitors. They're heroes. And now we're hearing from all sorts of people on the left condemning Schumer, mostly from Democrats who want to be president in 2028. So we're hearing from Newsom in California. We're hearing from Pritzker in Illinois. We're hearing from a lot of liberal congressmen and senators from all over the place. This is not a good look for Democrats. It backfired on them. They looked weak to begin with. They look even weaker now that they opened up the government. I want to say one more word before I throw to John about this. The Republicans have been yelling about Obamacare for at least 10 years. They don't like it. Fine. But the best of my knowledge, there's been a lot of talk about replacing it, but they haven't come up with a solid, real plan to replace Obamacare. And when premiums go up, because the Republicans aren't going to do anything substantial about health care, if and when the premiums go up, that's going to be on Republicans. The voters aren't going to blame Democrats for that. They may deem Democrats weak, but when they get premiums that are much higher than the old premiums, that's on Republicans. And there are many things that will affect the midterms, but that will be a big reason Republicans should be very worried. John?
Yeah, I agree. We started off with the shutdown, and I agree. I agree that it was entirely about the Democrats trying to show people, mainly the Democratic base, that they are fighting Trump, who is increasingly unpopular across the board. And in this sense, I think I might differ with you, Bernie. I think it actually worked, just with a different audience. A lot of Democrats, as you pointed out, are upset at Schumer, I guess, for not getting any meaningful policy concessions. But the whole thing basically came down to performative posturing, and it relied on most Americans not understanding the causes of the shutdown and instinctively blaming Republicans because of how Trump conducts himself, and because most people, even if they don't know much about politics, they know that Republicans hold the presidency in both branches of Congress. So, in oversimplified or maybe layman's terms, they view the Republicans as owning the government, and thus any government dysfunction in their eyes, I think they're inclined to attribute it to the GOP. It's not fair, but I think it is what it is. I don't think, and I understand a lot of Democrats are upset. I think, you look at Trump's approval rating during this, it continued to plummet. I mean, people were blaming the Republican Party. So it's sort of strange for me to see, and I get why they're doing it, to see some of these other Democratic leaders come out and go after Schumer when this, I think, actually helped the Democratic Party. by and large, just in the political optics of it. I'm not sure anybody will still remember this particular thing come the midterms. I think voters have shown time after time that they have very short memories. I suspect they'll be focused on other things, possibly.
Not John, not if their premiums are still high come November of next year.
Yeah, that's a different. I think healthcare will be an issue. I think the economy, I think, will be an issue. We're seeing some bad things on that, and so I think the midterms are probably going to be very good for the Democrats. I don't know if it'll be attributable to this government shutdown a year earlier. Once we get to the midterms, I don't know if that'll still be on people's radar.
Well, you're right. Republicans have a problem. The voters blame the shutdown on them. And you know why? Because the voters don't like Donald Trump. He is Mr. Chaos. And that's not going away. That's going to be around for a while, which leads me to the second segment, the filibuster. Donald Trump wants Republicans to kill the filibuster, his word, immediately. We know the arguments. He says, and by the way, I want to raise an important question about what he says. He says, if the Republicans don't kill the filibuster now, you know what's going to happen? Democrats will kill it when they take over. So my question for you, John, and for everybody listening, does he have a point? Now, I think it's a terrible idea to kill the filibuster. The filibuster keeps things stable, if that's the right word. It keeps things from being extreme. And if the Republicans kill the filibuster, yes, in the short term, they'll get a whole bunch of legislation through before the end of Trump's term. But you know what's going to happen when the Republicans lose the Senate, and at some point they will, and the Democrats use the filibuster that went bye-bye. You know what's going to happen? Everybody knows the answer to this. They're going to make Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. states. They're going to pack the Supreme Court. They're going to make abortion legal on demand in 50 states. They're going to do it. It's a terrible idea. But my question again, John, does Trump have a point? If Republicans don't do it, Democrats are going to do it anyway, in his view. So why not kill it now?
I mean, he maybe has a point in that. I don't think it's a particularly good point. The Democrats have done this before in the past, and they were able to get things through that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten through, and then they paid terribly in the next elections. When they did that, there was an attempt by them in 2022 to do this as well. It didn't happen. They didn't have the votes to do it. Enough Democrats held the line on that. But yeah, I don't think either party, I'm with you on this, Bernie, should abolish the filibuster. I think the 60 vote threshold is a good thing, even when it prevents things that I would really like. I mean, and it has. I think it's a good thing to require a little bit of extra consensus building in the Senate to distinguish it from the House and serve as a buffer of sorts against the some radical legislation and wild policy swings. I think that's it's every when a party can do it, there's this temptation to do it, but I think it should not be done, and I'm not convinced the Democrats would do it, but they might. But it's
they tried to do it. They already tried to do it. Manchin and Sinema prevented it.
Yeah, and I think though, it's funny. I talked to Jay Caruso about this. He's a longtime political commentator. I think it was last week on this website on the Daily Express podcast. But I think there were more Democrats than let on in the Senate who did not want this. So often that happens when you see that there are a couple of people on your side that are willing to sort of buck the rest of the party, and that takes the pressure off of everybody else to still vote for it, even if they, if not for these two, they may have well voted against it as well. I think the Senate, Congress, Congress is, the House of Representatives has been a mess for some time, but I think senators have a little bit better understanding of what kind of chaos that would cause.
I think you're being overly optimistic. if the Democrats,
Possibly.
and that's a good thing in general, but in this case, I think you may be off base. Here's why. The Democrats have a problem that we discussed already. Voters think they're weak. What better way to look strong than to kill the filibuster and make 2 Democratic stronghold states with 4 Democratic senators, to pack the Supreme Court with progressive judges? Then they could say, we're not weak. Look at what we just did.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's you may be right. You may be right. And I think it's probably that point that you started this off with that Donald Trump has. I think it's even, so right now, and I've made this clear in my writing, I feel like both parties are just trying to push forth really, really bad ideas. So, that when Trump says, well, we better do it now or the Democrats are going to do it. I'm like, well, what, you're going to, I'm like, why would I be for the Republicans doing it when right now they're not doing anything that's conservative? They're doing all this stuff different from what I want. It's easy. There's not really any pressure for me from either side to say, well, yeah, maybe the filibuster should be taken away. No, I'm for the filibuster for whoever is in charge, for whoever has the Senate. I think we should keep it.
Well, so do I. I want to make that very clear before we move on. So do I. I think it would be a terrible idea to kill the filibuster. All I'm saying, John, is I don't think the Democrats agree with me or you. I think when they take over, and they will take over at some point.
Yeah.
If it's in the near future, a couple of years from now, maybe 4 years from now, they're going to try to kill it, I think. And that's why, as bad an idea as Trump is putting forth, killing it immediately, I understand his logic. Okay, let's move on. This is we've been asking questions during this segment of the No BS Zone. I'm going to ask another one and throw it immediately to you. I have my thoughts on it, but I'll let you go first on this. Does the Republican Party, do Republicans have a bigotry problem?
Yes, I think both sides have a bigotry problem. Frankly, a bigger one than I had realized. I think it became pretty clear to a lot of us, Bernie, after October 7th, that there is we knew there was some anti-Semitism on the left. We saw a lot more of it than I think a lot of us were expecting with all the protests out there, mostly by young people. And now it's become clear that it's also a real problem on the right, again, mostly among young people. It was, I was talking about Jay Caruso about this topic as well, but I told him that I think this really started to rear its head and really make people like me sort of take notice of it after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. We've seen people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. They've been shifting toward anti-Semitism for a while. You had other right-wing influencers who started after Kirk was killed. They started calling for their supporters to do this unite the right thing, or no enemies to my right thing, to come together and to defeat the left. Only they were not talking about uniting with people like you and me, Bernie, traditional conservatives. They were talking about these anti-Semites like Nick Fuentes and his followers and these other radicals. Soon after that, we had the Young Republicans chat room controversy that exposed a lot. Tucker Carlson cozied up with Fuentes on his show, and the Heritage Foundation came to Tucker's defense. All of these things have really sort of, I think, exposed that this is indeed a real problem.
That's exactly right. This is about the reason this has come to the fore is because Tucker Carlson did a chummy interview with Nick Fuentes, a man who said, quote, "I love Hitler." Now, I know some jerk out there is going to take that quote and say Bernie Goldberg said, "I love Hitler." No, I'm quoting Nick Fuentes, who also said he's a fan of Stalin, like Stalin was the good guy during World War II.
Right.
So here's I'm full of questions today.
Okay.
Republicans need to speak out against this. Can we agree on that?
Yes. Who's
the voice of the Republican Party?
Donald Trump.
Has he spoken out against this?
No, not in any meaningful way. It's funny. This we've seen this though. This isn't really new from Trump. I guess we shouldn't be surprised, but he's long been reluctant to denounce bigots and racists.
You
In
know
the past,
why?
it's usually
You know why, John? You know why? Because
I-
they vote.
right,
And he's
right. I think that's
he,
right.
he is hesitant. He is hesitant. He's not a racist. He's not a
No,
bigot, but
well,
he is hesitant. Well, okay, you know what I'm saying. He's
yeah, yeah. Not. He's not an anti-Semite for
he's not
sure.
a true, right?
Right,
But
right.
he is hesitant. I think he's hesitant to do anything, to say anything that might lose a block of votes. And there is a bigotry block of votes in the Republican Party. It's not the Republican Party's fault. Anybody can join the Republican Party just as they can join the Democratic Party. But there are some hard right Nazis in the Republican Party. And Republicans must speak out against it because it's the morally correct thing to do. And for clarity and morality reasons, Donald Trump should say, we don't want you in our party. And if that loses, if they sit home on election day, screw them, let them sit home. But this calls for moral leadership.
Yeah, and it's I'll say one thing that I will hand it to the right on is that there have been a number of influential voices on the right that have come out strong against
Yes.
this. Ben Shapiro has been at the forefront of this.
Ted
Um,
Cruz.
Ted Cruz, yeah, and it's like I don't find many opportunities to praise Ted Cruz. He's been very good on this, and it's that's good to see. But you're right, with Trump, and we saw this. I actually don't get why it's as hard for him to do that now as it used to be, because he's not, well,
He's not running again. Well,
we don't think he's running, but he can't, he can't be president again. But
well,
it's,
sure.
yeah, well, I am sure of that, but I don't. I wrote about that this week. I don't want to get too far off the rails, but I would not be surprised. I get why people are concerned that he's going to try something. He's going to try to change rules and all that, but that's a different story. But it's it gets I think this first sort of came on a lot of people's radar in 2016 when he was running. David Duke came out and endorsed Trump, and Trump was so reluctant to reject the endorsement. He was given opportunity after opportunity. He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to offend.
Why do you, you're absolutely right. Why do you think that's the case?
But he wanted votes. He wanted votes, and again in 2020, where he talked about the Proud Boys, stand back and stand by and all that. Again, he was reluctant, and I think he wanted those people's support.
I think there's something about the man. If you like him, he will in return like you, as long as it doesn't inconvenience him. What did he just do the other day? He pardoned a bunch of lowlifes, starting with Rudy Giuliani, the once great mayor of New York and America's mayor, and Sidney Powell, or whatever the hell her name is, and a bunch of other screwballs who tried to steal or help him steal the 2020 election. They liked him. He likes them. It may be the same. This is crazy, but it may be the same with Nick Fuentes.
Yeah, and people remember Trump had
for lunch or dinner at the White House. Remember that?
He did, and I was sort of willing to buy at the time that Trump may have not quite understood who this person was, and I think that's if I want to be fair, I think that's probably what was the case. But yeah, and it's just I don't get he likes the people that are loyal to him. That said, I mean we've seen numerous examples of when as soon as these very loyal people get on Trump's bad side, he's more than happy to throw them under the bus. He's done that with a number of people.
Yes. As long as once they get on his bad side.
Right. Yeah, but, and a lot of times that it's usually just by upholding the law or something like that is what gets on his bad side. We saw that with Pence.
So far, Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson haven't gotten on his bad side. Tucker Carlson gave a platform to a Hitler-loving neo-Nazi and gave him a chummy, friendly, soft interview. Tucker Carlson is not a good person.
He's not.
Certainly not. He's certainly not a good journalist.
No, No,
But I keep waiting. I keep waiting for the voice of the Republican Party, Donald J. Trump, to say, no, we don't want you. We don't want your type. We don't want you, Nick Fuentes. We don't want your neo-Nazi followers, white supremacist followers, because then a whole bunch of other Republicans will feel free to say the same thing. All right, let's move on to the final topic, the economy. I've been asking questions during this whole no BS zone. I'm going to ask another one, but I'm going to answer it myself, John. You don't have to answer it.
okay.
Who does it sound like Donald Trump is channeling on the economy? Answer, Joe Biden. Joe Biden went out there and said, the economy's great. Bidenomics is working great. And voters said, I'm going to the grocery store and I have to rob a bank to buy a head of lettuce, a dozen eggs. This is crazy. What the president is telling me isn't true. And what did they do? They ousted the Democratic Party in the 2024 presidential election. So what do we have now? We have Donald Trump saying the economy is great, and give him credit. He's right about unemployment is low. Inflation rate is much, much, much lower than when Biden was president. But grocery prices, by and large, aren't coming down. Even if inflation is much lower, inflation means prices go up slightly. They don't come down. That's what people don't understand. I don't mean our viewers, I mean voters writ large don't understand. You can bring inflation down, but the head of lettuce isn't necessarily coming down. A steak isn't necessarily, the price of a steak isn't necessarily coming down. If prices don't come down, and the economy being issue number one always, Republicans have problems. The midterms are a long way off. I know that it's a year off, and a million things might happen, and about 1,000 things will happen between now and then. But if grocery prices are seen as a problem, the GOP can kiss their majority in the House goodbye, and maybe the Senate, but let's leave it to the House right now. They can kiss that goodbye. And you know what? Donald Trump could kiss his presidency effectively goodbye, because he won't get anything through Congress. He will be tilting windmills, and Hakeem Jeffries will say no to everything Republicans propose.
Yeah, no, and it's not just the prices are staying high. I mean, they are going up. We're seeing that in the numbers, and this really, and I'm broke. I've said this so many times, but it really does. So much of this comes back to Donald Trump's trade policy. He has been pushing this illiterate bipolar trade policy for several months now. It is doing completely needless, widespread damage to our economy. It is costing jobs. Overall unemployment's still low, but it is ticking up. Unemployment for young people is really in the crapper right now. But it's closing businesses. Like I said, it's driving up prices. It's driving up federal subsidies. It's screwing with these long-lasting trade relationships that we have with allies, and driving them into the arms of our opponents. A lot of economists are predicting a recession before too long. I think that's a big possibility. And I saw a really sort of troubling statistic the other day. So our GDP growth has remained positive, but it's really on the backs of these data centers that are being constructed for IT, for big IT corporations. I think that's counts for over 90% of our GDP. So you have this one sector that's sort of like carrying our economic growth, for the rest of the country. And it's this is a real problem. It's funny to see. I think JD Vance was out there the other day saying this is still Biden's economy. We have all this mess.
That will not sell.
No, we're 10 months into this to the second Trump term. This isn't Biden. I think this is going to be a real big problem. And I think right now we've had sort of a false sense of how good the economy is when it's actually, I think, a lot worse than people are realizing and feeling right now. I think there's a lot of pain to come, and the more that people feel it, the bigger of a problem it's going to be for the Republican Party.
The mistake politicians make, and they all make it. Donald Trump isn't unique in this respect, but Donald Trump promised. He promised that prices were going to come down. He did it because he knew that sounded good to people, and it was a way to get elected. And he was absolutely right. But if prices don't come down, and they go up gradually, which is better than going up a lot, but they don't come down, he's going to have trouble next year. Okay, before we say goodbye, I need to do one thing that I hate doing, and I do it every time before we say goodbye. I'm asking everybody listening to us right now, if you can afford it, and only if you can afford it, get a gift. One person, get one gift. Get one gift for somebody you like or somebody you don't like. Okay, please. We need it to stay alive on this website, and we need it. We need more people listening to us, but we also need it to stay afloat. Thank you. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
I will add one thing, Bernie. We are running, for people who may have not noticed, a sale on gift subscriptions right now, 25% off. This is so you can buy Christmas gifts for your friends at one of our subscriptions. So yeah, $37.50 for an entire year, and that's up there for the rest of November. You can time the gift so it actually goes to your friend or family member on Christmas if you want. That's when it could start. But check it out, yeah, go ahead, Bernie. I'm sorry to cut you off.
And if you can't handle that amount, I understand. Forget what I said. You're certainly under no obligation, right. And I still love you guys one way or the other. But if you can handle it, do John and me a big favor, okay? Get that gift and mark the box where it's delivered on Christmas. But do it now, okay? Thank you, everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.